Hi, so welcome to our step 5, which is our prone position. So this is the third plane that I'm covering out of the 5 different planes. So prone position, I feel, is one of the most challenging positions for some people. So a lot of people are drawn to Pilates from their therapists because they've had a problem with their lower back. So lumbar spine is particularly a problem in a lot of people. So whenever somebody presents and I ask them if they have any lower back problems, I always make sure that they've seen somebody about a problem that might have been lingering for a while, and I make sure that they know what they can and can't do. If it's been maybe an old injury and they're coming back to exercise and they've got the all clear, those sorts of things. So there's always a little bit of a history that I always need to look at to make sure that I keep them safe. There has been times when people have had surgery or they've had back fusion where this position in their body is not safe for them. And in fact, it can aggravate their problem and make it worse. So that's not to say that they can't do Pilates, because it's very different being able to do a particular plane in Pilates, but sometimes there's a lot of other planes or things we can do to strengthen the muscles around the injured site without doing prone, for example, in this particular case, because I'm talking about prone. So we always have to err on the side of caution, and I will always, if I feel that it's necessary, and there is a bit of a problem in the past, and the client especially, comes to me and they're not exactly sure, I will always ask them if I can liaise and have a conversation with their therapist so that I know what I'm dealing with. This person may have been going to someone for quite a long time and they know their history. So I'm not going to assume that I know. I always will make sure that I touch base and make sure that I'm keeping the person safe by coming to my class, or it could be a one-on-one situation. So our prone position is to lay on our tummy. So we always make sure that we press down evenly through our hips. So we make sure that we're not favoring one side more than the other. We make sure, so this is actually a very basic back extension position to be in. I would call this more of a stretch, but for some people, this is actually not a bad place to start, because they're actually getting their body used to the fact of being in this position. They're pushing down through their hips. They're pushing down through the tops of the feet. They've got their alignment with their feet and their hips, and they're starting to open up through the chest, drawing their shoulders back. So this can be a really, really good place to start for some people, especially people that I'm not 100% sure where I can take them in this plane because they have had some sort of issue. So given that it's not a surgery, those sorts of things, then sometimes we can work from this base. If you can see my posture here in my back, already before I've actually lifted any legs or really done much with my arms, you can already see that the back vertebrae are coming together. So they're not stretched all the way out when we come down like this, and we've got a long spine and all our vertebrae are separated. As soon as we lift up our legs or our arms, then we are shortening this space. Now, for a healthy back, that is wonderful. That is so beneficial for our health, our back health, and the rest of us. Because when we've finished the exercise, then when we come down to a flat position or we stand, then the body is forced to pump fresh oxygenated blood through the vertebrae and circulation. So it will enrich all that area with a fresh lot of oxygenated blood. So very, very healthy. But if the person has trauma to their back, or they've got rods, or they could have had surgery and had to have rods in their back to actually walk. I mean, I've had many, many people that have presented with all sorts of things with their back. So you can never assume what's going on in a person's back unless you ask the questions. So quite often there might be a fusion of two vertebrae together, which already means that there's less oxygen and less blood flow going to some of those vertebrae. So already there's trauma there. So if I add on, it might be okay, something like this. This is very subtle. But if I start adding on, and I'll show you in a moment, some of the other back extension work, then this could really aggravate and increase the trauma in the back. So we have to be careful. That's all I'm saying. On a person that comes and they haven't got any of these problems, then that's fine, but we always have to have that awareness. So the other exercise that I'm going to put in this plane, which technically, depending on what variation you're doing, the plank could be an all fours position, because if you're not very strong in your body and you're learning the plank, then you could be doing your plank in this position, which technically could be a all fours position plane in Pilates. But for the general people that I have coming to class that are looking for strength, then it's not very, it doesn't take them long to come into a full plank, which I will show you in a moment. There's lots and lots of variations. So first of all, I will start with the prone position of doing an all fours swimming position. So I'll show you first of all a basic one. So we can put our head onto our hands and just relax our shoulders. And just to start, to make sure that everything's good, we can just lift up one leg and then the other. Now, just doing this in isolation, I can notice about myself, and if I'm working with a client, I can notice about where they're at. I can notice if they're favouring one side more than the other. I can also notice, and they should be able to feel it, if they're pushing evenly through their hips, so they're not favouring one side more than the other. So that's a really basic thing that I can notice as soon as I start working with somebody. So if that's all good, then I would increase that for them. They would look down at the floor, so not head on the floor. The head would just be in line with the rest of the body. And then we would come to opposite arm to leg. So we keep looking down at the floor so that we're not doing this. We're not lifting up and moving our head independently. Our head's just staying still. The only reason it might be coming up a little bit is because it's attached to everything else. So it may be lifting, but it's not working independently. Our kneecap comes off the floor as well, so our leg is straight. So that's a really, really good start for me in a prone position. So if I can see that the person is really well aligned, they're lifting up their upper body, and they're not just dumping all the effort into their lumbar spine, they're also opening up and using a little bit of their upper body. then I'll be happy for them to increase the load and start to work a little bit stronger. So another variation on that one can be that we can do 2 legs up at the same time and 1 arm coming up at the same time. So this is stronger again than the last variation. There's a lot more effort involved in lifting both legs up. So we can try this in isolation before we add the arms, just to make sure that it's not too strong. So sometimes I might throw that in as a little bit of a preparation for the 3-limb lift. I may just do both legs at once. So I might get them to put the head on the hand and lift up both legs at the same time. And again, I can get the feedback that the hips are even, the legs are coming up at the same level on both sides. We're not favouring one side more than the other. So in Pilates, it's really important that I try and make sure that we work the sides of the body as evenly as we can. So that's covering our first exercise, which is really, really good exercise. Sometimes I'll throw that in with the fit ball. So we can do exactly those things that I just did. We can do it on a fit ball, which is adding that extra layer because our fit ball is unstable. So it helps us to actually work a little bit of our balance as well. And we will get feedback from the ball if we're actually favouring one side than the other. So that's another advantage. So I can go through all those things that I did on the floor. I can go through them with the fit ball. So we can do opposite arm to leg. And you'll notice that you really have to be in the right position on the ball, because if you're too far forward or too far back, then you'll end up falling. You could fall off the ball or fall forward or fall back. So it's a little bit trickier to do 2 legs and 1 arm. But if you're feeling confident, then and you're going fine with the 1 arm opposite leg, then you can challenge yourself. And there's no reason why, when you're learning the new variation, that you can do a couple and then you can go back to what you know and then increase. And that helps you to get stronger as well. So again, we can bring up both legs at the same time. Try and keep your arms straight so all the effort is in the back of the body. Okay, so that's a great way to use our fit ball and to increase the mobility as well through the legs and the upper body. So the next one is called Swan. So Swan does a combination of what we've just done. So we have our arms to the side, our palms up, and we look down at the floor and we lift everything up at the same time. So a variation of this one can also be to put the head under the hand or just next to the ears and lift up and down. So the difference is that our toes are almost touching at the back. So when our feet are closer together, it's more challenging than when our feet are wider. So on any of the exercises, if you feel challenged when your feet are nearly touching or your toes, big toes are touching, then if you take them a bit further apart, you'll notice that you have that extra broadness in the base of your body, which will help you with your alignment, and it will help you to not favour one side more than the other. So there's a few benefits in the safety side of things, just to work with your legs a little wider. And most of the time, if I've got a beginners to intermediate class and I've got a bit of a mixture, then I will usually go on the hips, the feet being hip distance apart, because it's just a good base to work with. And it's usually safe for everybody. So I like to do that. So we can do a little bit of side to side. So we can balance we can challenge our obliques a little bit. So we can take our fingertips just to the sides of the ears. So in any of these positions, we're making sure that we're pushing down through our hips. So every single exercise that'll be on our belly, the hips need to stay level and engaged with the floor so that we keep that whole lumbar spine safe. So that's another variation that we can do. So another thing to start, because Pilates primarily with Pilates, we're slow and controlled. And that is very safe, keeps us all very safe. But in life, when we take our Pilates off the mat and when we start to get a little bit more advanced, in our everyday, sometimes we might have to run quickly here, or we might have to act spontaneously and quickly. So all of a sudden, our beautiful core in our slow and controlled and all the beautiful things that we learn in our Pilates class, all of a sudden, we have to move quickly. We might be quite challenged to keep our core strong because all of a sudden we're not used to that. We're only used to having slow and controlled in our Pilates class, slow and controlled, which is great, you know, because that keeps our body safe. But I've got lots and lots of exercises that I pop in that actually are a lot faster. And the reason that I do that is because then we're mimicking real life sometimes, that we do have to coordinate and use a bit of the actual coordination of our body to move from plane to plane to plane to plane just a little bit quicker than what we'd like to. So these two do that. So when we're doing the same, so think about when we were doing before, when we were doing just one leg up at a time. So think about when you've got your legs up and your kneecaps up, and all of a sudden you're going double time. So you've got your head relaxed, your shoulders relaxed, and you're just doing double time as quickly as you can. Quick. So you've got to try, it becomes more relevant to be able to think about your hips being even, and with that up and down, you're not using momentum and you're not flicking your body around your legs and maybe lifting up your hips. So little things like that, you can start to get a bit sloppy on if you don't use that awareness. And this is where it comes across in our real life when we start to have to move quickly from one thing to the other, and we don't get time to think about all those little things that we learn in our Pilates class. So that's why I like to change tempo sometimes. So the next one, or the shoulder, and also when we're doing some of these exercises, if you notice, I put my head on my hands and I'm taking all the effort out of the upper body and taking it into the lower body. So there's actually no effort at all. I'm actually quite relaxed in my upper body. This is what sometimes we have problems with, because a lot of times, this is where I have to break this down with people when they come to Pilates. A lot of times, someone will come to Pilates and they'll walk in like this. Okay, so it's a little bit exaggerated, but they'll walk in like this. Okay, they're not aware that every single thing they do in their life, they bring their shoulders in and they walk around like this. So I have to address that straight away. Just say to them, shoulders down, chest out. And it takes some people a long time to actually realize that every single time they do something, they elevate their shoulders, which puts a lot of stress over the years on the shoulders and the neck. You know, you imagine your shoulders are working constantly when they don't need to be. They can be back and down and relaxed. So when we're doing a prone one, like that one that I just did, and this one now, and when we do just the legs and, you know, double legs or single legs, the upper body can just completely relax. So shoulders are down and back, head's just resting on the hands. So there's no effort. Lift your knees and your feet and everything. You're just pushing down into the hips. And then we'll do a little crisscross. So again, double time. So as you hear, notice if your shoulders are trying to come into it. They're trying to come up near the ears. Whether there's a bit of effort going on in the face muscles, in the hands, in any part of the upper body. And really think about relaxing all that so that it's only the lower body that needs to be active and a bit of tension, not the upper body. The upper body is relaxed. Okay, so practice all those variations. There's a lot there to do. I've actually highlighted the plank a lot in this particular plane. So technically, as I said before, the plank could have been put in all fours position, but for most of us, we will quickly get to the point where we do our plank in this position, which is still prone. Even though we lift it a little bit, we're still in a prone position. So there's so many things that I need to point out in this position. So a lot of people, I'll get them in this position and straight away they do that, or straight away they do that. Straight away they do that. So there's three areas in the body that can be weak. Can be this area here between the shoulder blades, can be the lower back, and can also be the abdominals. So when we can really be strong in a plank position, we can strengthen those areas of the body. We can strengthen more. There's a lot going on, but they are the three main areas that we can strengthen. So maybe when we first start with the plank, and if I see somebody go like that straight away, then I will tell them, put your knees down, lift up, round, even almost round up, so that you're not dipping, because we don't want the dip. That's going to just put pressure on our lower back. We don't want dipping between the shoulder blades, because that's going to just weaken our whole shoulder girdle. So we want to learn to lift up belly and upper back. So if we can create that posture, then I'm happy for the person to lengthen out their legs. So when they first start, I might, in a class, I might say, okay, we're going to plank for a minute. So someone that's just started on their feet and just starting in plank, every 10 seconds, they might have to put their knees down. But when they put their knees down, it's not a matter of just collapsing. It's a matter of just putting the knees down and keeping everything else strong. Then when they feel that they're strong enough again, they lift up. As soon as they start losing it, they might be dipping down, knees go down. So you get the picture that it's not important that you can stay on your toes for a whole minute, especially if you haven't been doing Pilates for a long time. The important thing is that you keep the alignment, you keep the muscles strong, you keep drawing in and lifting up and creating those those points of contact that are actually strengthening. Otherwise, if you're just dipping through the body, then you will either stay the same or you could even get weaker in your muscles because they're struggling and struggling and struggling, and then they may even just give up a little bit because, you know, they can't keep up. So lots of variations in planks once we get the fancy bit. But like, you know, this course is not about me showing you all the fancy bits. I can just give you a couple of variations, but when you get to that stage, you know, you'll be looking for a lot of other things, and I'll be happy that I've actually given you the good foundation. But at this particular point, I'm concerned more about everybody doing Pilates correctly and actually getting the foundation of Pilates so that they know what I mean when I say plank, what I mean when I say get into a prone position, all fours position, supine position. They're the ones I've covered so far, and then I've still got 2 more to go. So, you know, this is about finding the foundation and then building on the fancy things. So in our plank position, we can do one leg lifted, and we might only hold it there for 5 seconds, and then we might lift the other leg. You know, we might be able to take our knees just to the floor and then taking them back up. We might be able to do single legs without bouncing. So lots and lots of variations that we can do once we've got the strong core, the strong plank going on. We can also do our planks on the fit ball. Lots of times, if a person's not very strong through their core, I have given them planks on the fit ball. So we lift it up, and we might only last here for 5 seconds, and then we'll take our knees down, and then we'll lift up again. I've also, you know, done a lot of things with pregnant ladies where they can't actually do planks on the floor when they start getting a bit bigger because that's too heavy, and, you know, it really dips into their lumbar spine. So it's very beneficial to just do a plank like this for them, and they're still lifting up and they're still getting the benefits, but they don't have that real forward, like with the heaviness of the belly. So that's another thing that we can use our fit ball for. So lots of variations to try, and although the prone exercises, there's not a huge amount of variety, to be honest. It's basic alignment, it's basic arms and legs, lots of variations, but it's of the same thing, where we're really concerned about hips being on the floor, arms being extended out to the side, maybe side to side, but it's all about the strength of the lumbar spine and keeping that safe. So we don't need fancy. This is one plane where we really can build strength without a lot of fancy trimmings. And the plank is, I've got it in the notes, a lot of things that I've got about the plank, because I've featured the plank a bit in this particular step. So, you know, I love the plank, but I also want people to know that the plank is not the be all and end all. And I've got those in the notes, where I'm just pointing out that don't get too obsessed with the plank. You know, if the plank is not your strong suit, you've got lots and lots of other things to do, and just build up gradually, and don't worry too much if it's taking you a while to get that strength about you with your plank. So I think I've covered everything for this step. practice, practice, practice. Gave you lots of different things in that one. Remember, it's all self-paced, so you can stop and start, this little video as often as you like, and just do as many as you like. Normally, I would say to do maybe 10 on each side to start, maybe 15 at the most. You don't need a lot. Sometimes I like to use the stopwatch and have it like a little bit of a circuit situation where I might do 45 seconds. And then if I do 3 lots of the same exercise, then I know that I've been consistent in how many I've done. And sometimes you can notice if you're actually getting a bit stronger and a bit more used to the exercises if you time yourself and you can see a progression. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video and you got you learned something about our prone, our laying on our tummy position. And our next step is going to be all about our side. So our side plank or our side plane or position, which it will include a side plank. That's why I said that, but I didn't mean to say that. Okay, well done, and I will see you in step 6.